Ian. Thought you were doing an intro. The
Just
fuck?
play.
The fuck?
Hello, YouTube viewers. Welcome to this segment of Tripack Chat, a section where we discuss superhero drama and different comic book things and entertainment, things that interest us. With us, you have myself, Ian Apples, and Mr. Pure Love,
Hello.
and our friend Shuriken Blade.
Hello.
And in this installment, we're going to basically be talking about the kind of area of superhero shows and different dramas that are out on TV right now, based on Marvel and DC and other various entities. And we're going to see how they really are holding up, things like new Inhumans that are be coming up, how they're going to fare in the future. And we're just going to discuss that and see what we all think.
First off, since this is like the first official episode of this Tripack Chat thing, Tripack Black is a combination of us three combining to become one black entity.
The blackest.
The darkest. So
No relation.
exactly. So first, we want to really discuss about what makes good superhero content. Like saying when we're comparing like the Marvel shows that are out now, the DC movies and stuff like that. And one of the focuses we wanted to like go on was the Inhumans. And since that's like one of the newest things that are gonna be coming out, well, trailer wise, gonna be coming out besides the other shit. But first things like when we first saw this, I know we're not alone in this. The first picture when they showed off the Inhumans, it's kind of disappointing.
That's an understatement.
I mean, not even if you don't know shit about the Inhumans, if you decided, oh, let me Google these people and look up what this shit is about, you kind of seem underwhelmed. I felt underwhelmed when I saw the picture. I mean, for one, I knew who Medusa was. Like, just her hair, her everything. It's amazing in the comics and all that shit. It just Medusa. I saw that picture was just flat. Like, what? Would like I get they're probably, if they're gonna show off her powers in the show, it's gonna be CGI, but why not do a little bit something more for like the first pick, because that was just did not excite me for the show. What did you guys think?
I completely agree. I would use a different word than underwhelming. I would probably use the word more disappointment. You have these people that are supposed to rival or be like counterparts to like the X-Men, and you see how well they're fleshed out and done. And even though we're talking about movies to television, but still at this point, they've had enough hits and they have enough money to make sure the characters look correct. And I mean, I get that characters have to look realistic in a sense that they have to be relatable and look.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are talking about superheroes and we're talking about fiction. So there should be some creative leeways being made here. When you look at a picture, when going back to Medusa, her head looks like there's a box on it. Like, it literally looks like she has a flat square head, and it really bothers me. And I know it takes a lot to make characters look good in cast and makeup, and artists are they do great jobs, but the best way to describe the original picture, sticking with that, the original picture, it was definitely disappointing compared to their comic book selves.
Yeah.
Especially if we take a look at a picture of their comic book selves and put them side by side, you'll definitely see there is no comparison there. It really isn't.
What'd you think, Pure Love?
Boy, where do I start with that? To me, disappointing wasn't the word. It seemed more like it was trashy, is the best way I could describe it. It seemed like it was a low-budget film.
Yeah, I definitely not. We'll go into the trailer later, but yeah, low budget is a word.
Not even just the trailer itself, just the initial presentation of it just seemed like it was somebody who was just brought on for the first time and didn't really care about it at all. And it's like, hey, you know what? We only have like a $5,000 budget. Let's see what we can do.
I mean, like, let's compare it to one thing. Like when you first saw the Daredevil poster, like whatever for that looked great. It was simple. It was, what was it? I think it was him in like a suit, and he had like a a bruised up lip and all that shit. It was simple, but it showed off
Yeah.
something. Like, it was good.
But if you can tell when you saw the character designers, the people that were doing makeup, people that were doing design, they were looking at the comic book and they drew most of the inspiration from it. Like
Yeah.
when you look at the Inhumans compared to poster compared to that, I don't see the comic book. Like the only reason I even knew who they were is because I knew who the comic were and who like they were trying to quote trying to emulate. Like we all know who Medusa is because Medusa has red hair. We know who Black Bolt is because we know Black Bolt was the leader of the Inhumans at the time. So it's like, okay, like you know who they are because of their position and their way they're standing, and you can pick it up in context. But if you're someone that's just getting into who the Inhumans are, like most people that are going to check out the show, you know, a majority of the people are going to want to check out the show because they heard Inhumans on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or they've heard inklings of the Inhumans before, they heard movie news about the Inhumans. So like, oh, I never heard of this comic book these characters, I want to check them out. This is not a good first impression of them at
I
all.
personally, I don't. When I was younger, I didn't really pay too much. I watched X-Men stuff, but I didn't really mess with the Inhuman stuff all too much. I didn't know all too much about it. I'm just saying, like, when I looked them up, when I saw like a bunch of media on them, like years ago, when they're like, okay, we're gonna do the Inhumans movies, I was like, I kind of get why they took it off, because it's not like I don't think Inhumans is as like popular as some of the other content out there. You know, like, you know what I mean, some of the other Marvel content. So they like focused on that. I kind of get that, and that's probably why they stepped down and said, let's just make it a TV show. But like,
I mean, it was a natural progression because of, like I said, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was all about the latest two seasons were about, you know, first was the introduction of the Inhumans, and then, oh, how the Inhumans affect society and the world in normal, and now we're gonna jump into a TV show about them. So I mean, it's kind of a natural progression. I can understand why they chose Inhumans, because they must have really liked these characters, and like you said, they wanted to bring them into the mainstream, which, shoot, they're a lot more mainstream now than they were, like you said, when you were younger, because now everyone knows who they are. They may not know who they are, like in terms of in detail, like they would know Captain America or something, but they know that the Inhuman TV show is coming. Like they do know that.
Yeah. See, like, okay, let's talk about the trailer for one. Like, this is going to be a Marvel product. Like, I'm pretty sure Marvel Studios is doing this, right? Like, it's supposed to be I don't know, like, when people are going to think about this, they're going to think about the other Marvel properties and TV shows right now. The whole thing, that trailer for the show was beyond, I don't want to say boring. Boring's not the right word. It was unimpressive. Like, I was not even in the slightest excited for the show when that trailer came out.
Because I feel like that reasoning is for basically because, like what we were talking about, a lot of people don't know who these characters are. So it's like, okay, you're bringing us into this drama. You're bringing into this narrative. We'll talk about the trailer a little bit. And spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't gone to watch it, we'll put some kind of link somewhere for you to go and to watch it before you get to this point. So just if you don't want to get spoiled from a trailer, you know, just be careful on this next part. But the trailer introduces us to a narrative about the Inhumans and how there's a civil war basically going on between, you know, whatever factions are in their world. And if that was, let's say, a civil war between, like, you know, some familiar superheroes like Captain and Iron Man, we jump right in because we know who those heroes are. There's an established fan base already. But now you're talking about bringing us into this narrative of characters that are unknown. Their stories are unknown to us. And some people that appeals, like for myself, like I'm a comic book reader, so I know who the Inhumans are, and I'm like, oh, I'm interested to see how this conflict is going to be, you know, remade in a new way in the Marvel TV universe. But for people that are, number one, new to the characters and new to the story, this kind of drama doesn't really interest, I think, the general crowd. And I could be wrong, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't feel like it was a very crowd appealing, you know, trailer. I don't think it drew you in because, number one, you didn't see, I mean, it was a trailer, no, we get that.
Yeah.
But like the main characters, you didn't even see them using their powers, number one. That was a really big
We got a
disappointment.
small taste of Black Bolt. There were a couple other little action sequences. My whole thing is like,
There were action sequences, but there was no like you know, it
I'm
was
just
not
saying,
play.
I don't know who was in charge of like the sound effects or something, or like for that trailer, but that shit sounded like from 2001 and some shit. Like I remember hearing those in fucking video games, old ass video games. So
And it's
I'm
sad
like,
when a person's powers are more implied than they are seen, you know, because like they imply what black powers are, which Black Bolt's power, he basically is like a sonic voice. He's like, it's really like a like black, think like Black Canary, but like
mm.
on a whole new level. Like
and
it's
and you know what?
crazy.
Honestly, I gotta commend the actor because like, okay, for one, this is why I'm gonna keep an open mind, even though wasn't too happy about the stuff that I got. I'm gonna keep an open mind only because for one, with the person that's playing Black Bolt, you got to basically play a character and only act through your facial expressions, nothing else, because he can't talk. He talks, people die. So it's just like I kind of get that. Why I didn't expect Black Bolt to be. I mean, how, like honestly, how do you act that? How do you prolly act something like that where you know your character can't talk?
I mean, I'm keeping an open mind as well. I'm definitely gonna check it out, like, but I'm just not giving any guarantees. And just from a perspective of looking like, why would the trailer be disappointing?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, like that right there just goes to show, like, you know, it's. And if we're talking about strictly trailer, not about, you know, oh, how the potential of the show, but we're talking strictly trailer here.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a great trailer in terms of just being a trailer. Like, if we're going to talk about potential, then yeah, we can say that any show has potential. We got to give it a chance. And I'm going to keep an open mind. Most people will. But
Mm-hmm.
talk about pure trailer. Like, we've seen good trailers before, trailers that get
Oh
you
yeah,
hype,
yeah.
you know? That kind of segues into what the next point, you know, we want to talk about, you know, like good shows or shows that have been proven already, shows that have, like, you know, really, you know, already not stood the test of time necessarily, but like shows like Agents of Shield. You know, why are shows like Agents of Shield and Daredevil? Why are they, like, you know, staples in, like, in terms of good Marvel show quality? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are they so good?
Speaking of which, let's talk about like the possible future for this. Like, I mean, for one, the Inhumans, I'm hoping it's not going to be as bad as like I think the trailer was. But all honesty, like possible future, I think if they're gonna want the show to continue, I think they're gonna need like Agents of Shield crossover or something like that to carry it. They need something to carry the show because it's
Oh,
not
for
off to a
sure.
good start. To
I
be
guarantee you
honest,
the first episode is going to have Agents of Shield in it. That's
like
almost a guarantee.
even one character be good in this. Like any one character, that's fine. Because Agents of Shield has a whole spoilers ahead of time for this. Agents of Shield has a bunch of like Inhuman stuff going on right now, so it's like it only makes sense to like have a crossover. Like my whole thing is like if they're gonna do something possible future. This is another gripe I'll get into later, but I feel like if they're going to have these shows all connected to the MCU, then they need to do that more often. Like, I know the Defenders, they're going to do that's going to be their big crossover show. We already knew that was happening. But for stuff like the smaller shows, I say it's smaller because they don't have heroes carrying it. Like, really, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that show took itself off for a while. It did really well in the second season and on, I think. Personally, to me, it couldn't. Other people might disagree, but that's fine. But
No, that's
like,
the general consensus.
yeah, basically, I think I'm gonna give the Humans first couple episodes. I'm giving it a chance, but I feel like it needs a little something to carry it. That's my personal opinion.
No, I agree. I agree with that. It's gonna need some crossover, just like referencing like DC shows, just like Green Arrow and Flash, how they
Mm-hmm.
consistently cross over with each other, and those shows' ratings are always high because it's
Mm-hmm.
just something that fans like to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a cop out. It's a great thing to do. People love watching their universe to share. I'm not as big as watcher as Green Arrow and Flash as Pure Love is. So I mean, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me get on that in a second. Even with the crossovers with the show that they have now, like with the Agents of Shield, they already had crossover with some of the secondary characters from the actual movies themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they could do something like that. That'll help things out. But yeah, definitely the way that CW has handled the crossover between Arrow and Flash, I think that's a pretty good model for ABC to follow if they're looking to do crossover, because they had a pretty good setup with them. You know, they established the characters one way or another, and it left good. Thankfully, ABC has a pretty good record of superhero shows. You know, they have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on there now, and they have some other ones going on. So I'm hoping that they do right by this. But so
Me
far.
too, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, the crossover episodes probably they have to be the highest viewed. Like, I'll look up some figures or some shit. But for DC, the crossover stuff with Arrow probably has to be the highest viewed shit. And really, I know for one, I'm pretty sure the Arrow fans crossed over as Flash fans when they did like even those little like before the Flash came out. I think no, one of the first episodes he went to go see Arrow and Arrow saw him and his show. And it's like little things like that. Like it could be for a couple seconds. Like anything that can really help a show like take off.
And I really like how with those crossovers, the universes crossed over and they stayed crossed. Not universes, but the shows.
Yeah.
Like when the shows crossed over, even before they had an official crossover, the shows were always in the shared universe.
Yeah.
So it would really behoove them to make sure that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. universe and their Inhumans universe are together, because it would make almost no sense for them to have Inhumans and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. separate Inhumans from the Inhumans television show. So they can also take that model, and when they crossover shows, keep them cross.
It really depends on how they decide to introduce the Inhumans' abilities to them. Because in the another spoiler, in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, the Inhumans in there got their abilities through the breaking of the Terrigen crystals and the temples. Are they going to keep to the same effect for the Inhuman show, or are they gonna make their own up? Because if they do make up their own origin story, that could also make things a little bit difficult if they're looking at a possible crossover.
I feel like they might stick to like how, because we don't know 100% yet. We don't know if it's the same thing. Like it's some people that like have never known about Inhumans until like Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like I don't think there's a lot of people that know are like that, but people that are like that, they probably like oh, going into Inhumans are like, okay, so they probably got their powers the same way, just a different time than like the Humans and Agent Shield and blah blah blah. So it's like I feel like I'm hoping first episode they kind of stick to it, like they got their powers the same way, like they don't switch it up or anything. I don't think they would, because I feel like they're trying to keep the shows less like loosely connected, like not as hard connected as like I guess I'll say the DC shows are, because it's just lately with the shows they've been loosely, like a lot of loosely. They've been connected to like the movies loosely and all that. They'll make references, but nothing hard, like hard connections, like where they're actually in each other's shows and whatnot. Because one of the best things I'll say, I possibly hope this for like Inhumans too. One of the biggest things that took Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. spoiler by the way, what took Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. to like a higher ring or whatever was when the whole thing in Winter Soldier happened and that affected Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The show got ridiculously good after that. So big things that affect the universe like that, when they trickle down to the shows, that shit is awesome.
And I mean, let's not even forget that Nick Fury is not like some kind of like basic second character either. Like that's a big name. Like that's the interweaving thread between the first original 4 or 5 movies, was Nick Fury.
Yeah.
So you're talking about using that kind of trump card inside a TV show, and props to Samuel L. Jackson for really going along with that, because some actors could be real douchebags and say, well, you're not going to pay me enough. But someone that really loves their character and loves the series, that kind of affection, that kind of like, I don't know, desire and passion for the character really translates through in helping, a show like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Really, because I think the season that he appeared, was that season 2 or season 3? I think
it was season 2.
I don't think at that point.
Nick Fury?
I think the show was actually already like, it was in its incline.
I think maybe
it was already going up.
Maybe I think it was like the end of season 1, because I remember it was something where the plane got destroyed, and Nick Fury is like, "Oh, this is your last," or some shit, talking about basically he destroyed the plane and not to fuck this one up.
Due to my bus, this is my baby.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you even so, regardless of when it happened, and you have characters like that are willing to put down necessarily the money or the contracts and just act a character, for the character's sake, Because I mean, imagine how the episode would have tried to go if they didn't have Nick Fury and they were just, let's say, talking to him on the phone. The episode would have been okay. It would
But
have
it
been good
definitely
because we
helped
would
to
have
have
known.
him in there.
But yeah, but having him there, how much more so, how powerful the episode was, even more.
Shit,
that he was
we all
there.
know that's like the only one the show can afford, because there's no way in hell, even if they said, oh, just do a voice, they're not getting Robert Downey Jr. We all know that shit.
Yeah, right.
And they're gonna make way too much money off of Marvel. Not way too much, but like he's worth it.
I mean,
Definitely
rightly
worth it.
so. I mean, there's no other Tony Stark. But
Exactly.
so, all right. So, I mean, yeah. Oh, what'd you say, man?
Yeah, I was gonna touch back on what Shuriken was talking about earlier about the Winter Soldier thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so that brings up an interesting question of at what point in the timeline, in the MCU timeline, are they going to start this show?
True.
Because if they started,
that's a good point.
If they started before Winter Soldier, then that's going to have a lot of, Shield stuff like, well, we already know where this is going to end up, so how's it going to weave into the story? Versus if they try and start it, kind of where they are now, then it's going to continue in the continuation. So it'll be interesting to see where that pans out in the.
Was there any? I'm trying to think. This may be a discussion for another video, but I kind of remember in Agents of Shield when the Inhumans were like when they were talking about them being Inhumans. I don't think that term was just kind of like made up. I think they got it from somewhere.
No,
so
yeah, there was a group before. There was a group like before the Terrigen Mist stuff happened that called themselves Inhumans.
Right. So maybe we're looking at.
Yeah, I believe it was when the Kree first came to Earth.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get into
their experiments the first time.
Oh, so maybe we'll get into more of where that came from or how the Inhumans already got here, and then once the two shows eventually catch up, if they share the same universe, hopefully,
and
we can.
Let me be honest. This is where Marvel's winning. This is where they have the advantage when it comes to like this media, because when you look at it, yeah, the whole fucking DC thing they call the Arrowverse and all that. Yeah, they have their crossovers, which is all cool. That's great. But not only does the Marvel have the crossovers with their own shows, but they also have it's connected to their movies. So basically, both with DC, both of them have to stand on their own. This is where the Marvel has their advantage. This is why I hope they don't mess it up, because it's like you have all this stuff that you can go of. You can go from the stories from your movies, bring them into your shows. So it's stuff that people can easily latch on to. Like don't know if you guys seen it yet. Have you guys seen the Spider-Man movie yet, the new one?
I have not seen it yet. No.
I advise you see it. That is another good example. Spoiler, not a huge one, but that's another good example of a good connection with your universe right there. I advise everyone to see the new Spider-Man movie. It's fucking amazing. But yeah, that's an example of a good connection to the universe, which is something that so far isn't bad. Like, not only that, not only just talking about Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil. Daredevil was like, I guess their experiment, like, okay, let's go out, let's make a Marvel show with this character. He's not a huge character, but we're going to make a show about him. Daredevil was amazing. Season 2 of Daredevil was amazing. And the best thing they're doing right now is, like, even though it was bound to happen, they're going to do the whole Defenders thing. Daredevil's kind of, I feel like, along with Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe, but Daredevil a little bit more, is pretty much the shows that are carrying the MCU right now. Like,
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, Jessica Jones was all right. Only reason I like Jessica Jones is because of fucking David Tennant. Like, that was his performance was great.
Is the best part of that show.
He was really good.
He was really fucking good. After that, I gotta rate it like. To be honest, I had this. It was earlier. I had like in like third place for it all was Iron Fist, but I changed that. Third place probably Luke Cage. Even though I have my gripes with Luke Cage, that's going to be a whole nother fucking video if we have to do that, because too much to say about that. Then there's Iron Fist. Now, Luke Cage and Iron Fist, that whole nother discussion, but whole point is, those two heroes, they never were really that good alone. Like, what took them off was the combination when they're like, okay, let's put these two here together. Heroes for Hire, Luke Cage and Iron Fist. So those two, I think even in show form, aren't going to carry themselves all too well. They need something to carry them. So that
I'm guessing the carry is gonna be Daredevil, a much more well-known
hmm
hero,
hmm
in my opinion. I mean, even though as bad as it was written, he did have a standalone movie. As bad as it was,
yeah.
you know, most of them cannot say they had a standalone movie. So yeah, I feel like Daredevil is gonna be the pillar to carry
hmm
that those group.
Now
So
speak.
so who do you think is going to be the carried in the Inhumans show?
I mean,
Hmm.
honestly, the thing carrying and probably going to be carrying Inhumans is Agent of Shield. I
I was
mean,
gonna say most
yeah.
likely like Sky,
I
or
feel like
Agent.
yeah, they would have to either bring her in or reference her something to where like it's not gonna. I'm not gonna say alienate the fans, but more like keep them connected and all that jazz.
And once
Okay,
again, if they try and they if they isolate their universe, then that whole thing goes to moot.
Yeah.
so what do you so let's talk trailer then. What do you think about the trailer? Like, how do you think the trailer sets up the show, or what could the trailer have done better or
We
got
were
right?
talking about that, and I don't even, I don't even know honestly, like how, like that's why it's so confused. Like I feel like the trailer gave us something and then nothing at the same time. Like I don't
That's
feel
actually a
like I
pretty
knew.
good explanation. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
I feel like it gave us, okay, it gave us, oh yeah, there's a show coming. It's gonna have action.
hmm
It's gonna have generally the same type of action as Agents of Shield, lots of shooting, lots of car chases. That's what I got from that trailer. With a mix of superhuman abilities. But I didn't get anything that made it more or less unique from Agents of Shield in the trailer.
hmm
Like that's just like a trailer is supposed to be a trailer, so I can't pick it too in depth, like dig into it, because then it's like, oh, well, you're just you're just basing off of a trailer. You haven't seen the show yet. True. So I can give it some leeway. But like when you release a trailer, you're generally supposed to, you give some plot, which they did. They gave their narrative into their story about the Inhumans coming to Earth
Uh huh.
and wanting to get to Earth. You got that part. All right. So you got the fact that Inhumans come to Earth and they're a little bit unexpected. You got that part. Other than that, there's really nothing else that really made it look different from Agents of Shield to me.
hmm
You don't want to go the route where you don't give anything, but then you don't want to go to the Spider-Man Homecoming route and play the whole movie in the trailer.
True.
You don't want to. You got to find a good balance. And so, to answer your question, what was good in the trailer, nothing was necessarily bad, but nothing was great either. Like I
Yeah.
said, it gave a lot of something. It gave something, and it gave a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
I feel like it was kind of a subpar trailer.
hmm
I feel
Hmm.
like it did an adequate job at establishing that there is some kind of conflict,
hmm
but I mean, it's the conflict doesn't really feel like it should matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I should really care about it. It basically feels like a family squabble, which you can go on. You can go on Jersey Shore and find something like that. So what
True.
what exactly is the reason why that makes this different? What's the
Yeah.
reason
What's the
behind
pull?
it?
What's the
That
hook?
what's the hook
What?
exactly?
There's no
Let
hook. There's nothing to pull you in.
let's talk about Well, okay. Let's talk about like I'll say the slight decline with the MCU shows.
Hmm.
Um, Now it came out explosive and all that shit with Daredevil. The choreography, all that shit was beautiful. The fight scenes, like that one, they did it in the season 2 as well. But the one shot fight scene was great, beautiful. The story was great. The drama, the conflict between the characters was beautiful. Then we move on to something like Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones, we get an established character. We also have another character that in there that's like kind of she's following at the beginning. You don't know who it is, but then you get an idea, and steadily the show is pretty good because it has this thing on your shoulders. You keep hearing the references and all the shitty things this person did, and it keeps following you through the entire show until you finally meet him. For one, I want to say that is just well done. Like for Jessica Jones, that's probably the best part of how they led up to the fact that how bad David Tennant's character was, how terrible he was. That was the right way to have a villain. You show
You know, a character is good when you don't refer to them by the character they play. You just refer to them by their actual name.
Yeah.
That's how good they were.
Shit. But like, for real, that is how I'm. The reason I want to get in that is how you should be doing a villain. You show the bad they did. You constantly see the like literally the shit they leave in their wake. That is a great way to do a villain. And then we get, I'll say this, we'll get Luke Cage. This is spoilers to anybody that has not seen these shows. I'm sorry to say that before I start talking about it. But Luke Cage. My problem with Luke Cage, I feel like it is the beginning of the decline in some of the MCU content. Like Luke Cage's villain was absolute garbage. First villain you get introduced to, I think his name was Cottonmouth, something like that.
Cottonmouth, yeah.
Now Cottonmouth was pretty good, but throughout the show they keep talking about this other guy.
Diamondback.
Whole time referencing like he's this badass dude. They reference him, they talk about him. You don't know shit about him. You also don't have any reason to fear this guy. They don't give you a reason to. Cottonmouth, on the other hand, you could fear this guy. You see him fucking throw people off buildings, beat the shit out of people, all that shit. You have a reason to fear Cottonmouth. Now, I had a discussion with someone before that it's kind of hard to put fear of a villain when you have a hero that's basically invincible.
Yeah.
And I do understand that. That's why that's why I kind of moved it up to third rather than last place in my whole, when I'm comparing Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage and Iron Fist. That's why I put it in third instead. For one, Luke Cage is invincible. Who can actually beat Luke Cage, let alone like a super villain type motherfucker? So you're not necessarily all of that scared of a villain. But there are ways around that, in my whole opinion. Like, he has people that he's close to. Like, threaten the people that he's close to.
Especially if you're introducing, like, a normal human versus a superhuman. Those kind of, like, that point makes a lot of sense. Like, he's not going to be able to defeat Luke Cage in a traditional, like, I'm going to beat you up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to think a little bit more.
We'll get in that, too.
Creative, you know.
Yeah. Now, That's why I wanted to compare it to Jessica Jones. Like, so you shouldn't really always compare stuff, but Jessica Jones did a really good job of like making a villain for her. Like, you knew about it, she knew about the villain, you knew she had a tragic past because of him. Luke Cage, they did not lead up to this villain whatsoever. This guy Diamondback, you just hear shit about him. There's a scene in the show, there's a spoiler again, that absolutely made me lose my shit because it was stupid. Diamondback is supposed to be this, they're talking about and referencing like he's this badass guy, but he meets up with whatever like drug dealers or whatever these fucking badass dudes are, and they're in a warehouse, and I believe it's just Diamondback and one other guy, but he's in a room with a bunch of armed fucking thugs, gangsters, and all that ish. Tell me why they're so terrified of this guy. They don't set up to why you need to be scared of Diamondback. You just know that he's like a villain. But basically what I'm getting at is just that he's surrounded. They should have killed him or something, done something, because at the end of that scene, he basically, spoilers, shit, like he basically kills them. And I'm like, you're just one guy. That didn't seem like we should fear you. That just seems stupid. But that's my whole point. Steadily, things have been declining, just like even in Iron Fist. There's not too much I can go about Iron Fist, but I think it's at fault the studio or whatever. From what I heard, that I think it was like 2 weeks before like the actual filming, that's when he started his training. So it definitely, the combat didn't feel as fluid as it did with Daredevil. So I think there's been a steady decline so far. You know what I mean?
That might just come from the complacency. I mean, like, Marvel has been riding high for a long time in the last, like, you know, if you want to start back into the success of 2008 Iron Man, and just if you're combining success of movies and TV shows, they're like, you know, I feel like Marvel is like, well, we've done nothing but good. We've been making hit after hit after hit, you know, and they don't put the effort into, like, I felt like there wasn't as much effort into Iron Fist. Like I felt like there was and there wasn't. Like, I'm glad they took a small time character and made him like cool, but they also made his character annoying, like really annoying, like conflicting morality, but at the same time, like it really just made his motivations and the way he moved. You know, that's a whole other video right there in itself too. That mess of a show. But point being, like, I feel like that decline is coming from, I wouldn't say arrogant, but it's more complacency. It's like, oh, we've made good shows, so anything we put out, even if we, you know, don't tone up the effort quite as much, you know, that I understand that Marvel's trying to do their own thing, and like the TV shows are going to be different from the comic books, understandable. But if you look at, like, you know, characters like Luke Cage, for example, his character really didn't stray too far from the comic book.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't do anything wrong when it comes to portrayal of the characters. They did excellent with that.
Up until you get to Iron Fist, which I feel the characters in the comic book, the way his story was written, even though, and you know, once again, spoiler alert, even though in the end it did round off the way it was supposed to, with Danny Rand eventually avenging his father in a sense of killing the person that killed his family, it didn't feel as rewarding because the character was always conflicted all the time, and that's not how the original Iron Fist was. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the original Iron Fist was much more determined. He did have his issues in terms of being able to use his powers, like every superhero does, but it was just a lot more. His drive was more clear, his focus was more clear, and that's because the intent and the plot was a lot more clear in the comic. The comic book, he wanted revenge on his father's partner, clear and simple. There was no like mystery, there's no twist, there was no, you know, nothing to dilly dally with. It was just straight to the point. But whereas you have this TV show where I feel like it was just not as good. So yeah, my whole idea, you know, we can talk about Iron Fist in another video. Like, I feel like Marvel's decline would be just because of complacency. We put out so many good hits for so many years that, you know, we can just keep doing it and no consequence. That's absolutely false.
What you think?
So, I think there's definitely some complacency there, but I'm hoping, because they've usually, for the most part, Marvel's been pretty good with origin stories. So I'm hoping when it comes down to the Inhumans in this instance, I have, you know, in the back of my mind when watching the trailer, I was thinking that even though there was this kind of like family drama, family tension, I don't think we've actually seen the real villain yet for the first season. So, you know, piggybacking what both of you were saying before, I hope they somewhat go like the Jessica Jones route, and they introduce, you know, the stories of this villain almost like an urban legend to really build up the hype train for him. And then boom, you get this villain that's like, oh, okay, now we can finally put a face to the name, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we can finally So I hope they really go that route in Inhumans, because then that'll help definitely make things a lot better than what they initially look like right now.
Like that's what I'm saying. That's why I didn't go too much detail with Daredevil, because I see very little faults in that show, but that's just me. Daredevil did the same thing with their villain Kingpin. You hear references to him, you see him, you see the shit that he does, you know he's a good villain. I just feel like the last two shows should pick up on that. That's my only gripe with them. Everything else, pretty good. Character, how they showed the characters, pretty good too. But like I said, same with Pure Love said, I'm hoping for Inhumans to show off whatever villain, whatever conflict, showed off a lot better than they did with Iron Fist.
One other thing to add that I just realized that I totally overlooked when we were discussing this, but we have to also remember that we're talking about ABC and Netflix, two completely different companies in how they do things.
You're right.
So for my personal view, I have to remember, like, I'm not comparing it to, even though they're the same umbrella company of Marvel, you got to remember that Netflix is doing one set of shows and their Universe of Defenders, and you have, you know, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Inhumans doing a whole different type of style, you know, a whole different type of drama, type of action. So we're just going to have to keep that in mind when the two shows do come out, not to too closely compare them in terms of basically the comparisons really would have to stop at being Marvel properties. That's really where it's gonna have to stop.
Yeah,
I mean, they can take notes from each other, but you can't honestly compare Marvel's production compared to ABC's production.
I agree with you because, all honesty, Netflix's shows are much darker than ABC's. Let's be honest. Agent of Shield gets sort of dark, but not as dark as like the Netflix ones have gotten.
I mean, there's a reason they call it ABC Family. Like, it's still
true.
You know, it's still a primetime network television program.
Yeah,
you have to remember.
Touching on that, one thing that Agents of Shield's really done well is, if you notice, they have almost 2 separate plots going on in one season that end up tying together.
Yeah,
at the very
true. Very true.
If you look at the last season of Agents of Shield, which obviously just is a bit of a spoiler, it was mostly surrounding, the first half was mostly surrounding around Daredevil. Oh, not Daredevil. I'm sorry.
Avengers. Well, they talked about Avengers a lot of that.
Yeah, they talked about the Avengers, but it was mostly around Ghost Rider. There we go.
Yeah,
it was mostly around Yeah.
What was it, 4th season or whatever it's at now?
Yeah, the latest one that came out. So the first half of the season was centered mostly around Ghost Rider, whereas then they somewhat resolved that a little bit, and then it was dealing with, you know, more about the Inhumans, what was going on, trying to find this book, Ada, whatever was going on with her, and then boom, all of a sudden it all comes to a head where both of which are involved, and now you understand why Ghost Rider was in this to begin with. So maybe because it's ABC, they'll do something like that where the first half of the season will be focused on one sort of plot storyline, and the second half will be more in the other, and then boom, it all comes to a head. You see everybody coming in. Nick Fury drops a bomb, you know, whatever.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start getting to like our final like thought on this. Like, what can Marvel do to improve their shows and Humans? What can they do to pretty much improve their other MCU content that aren't the movies? What do you guys think?
My number one thing is always just try your best to stick close to the original writing. I know it's a moot point sometimes because they have to make their own TV show and they got to make it their own universe, and that's completely fine. But what I mean by that is, like, if a character's personality and a character's motivations are one thing, you know, or I'm sorry, let's say this again. If a character's motivations and a character's desires are integral to, let's say, their powers, or let's say how their character even develops their powers, I feel like those should stay the same. Especially when you have like examples like you said, Iron Fist, where the way the character's personality was completely ruins how the character is perceived. So I think Marvel shows from this point forward need to really keep in mind what they're working with. Trust the property that they are working with, because like obviously the properties, you know, they've been written, they've been tested, some are good, some are bad, but you have solid property that has a good story that's been well written, you know, for the most part. Stick to that. Stick to that, you know, make sure that you're keeping, because at the end of the day, like, even though it's not, all these shows are not just for comic book heads. There are people that have never seen comic book. There's people that just like action shows. There's people that like, you know, fiction, you know, whatever your likes are, you know, obviously you can't please everybody. And I expect that, and I'll still watch. I'm still going to give it the benefit of the doubt and watch it. But like, for those who are paying attention to how it compares to the comic book, you know, you don't want to lose that fan base either. Even though you have to establish your own universe, don't stray from the material that you've been given. Like, especially when you have so much to take. You know, one thing I love about the MCU, what they've been doing, is that even though their ideas are different in the MCU, every time I go to watch a movie, for example, like Civil War, even though it wasn't exactly how the comics did it, but you pick the way they picked and chose how things happen is like, okay, this wasn't exactly how it happened word verbatim in Civil War, but I know where they got that idea from. I know why the Civil War is still Captain America versus Iron Man, even though they're not fighting for the same reasons from the comic. They're fighting for something really similar, and it was inspired. So like, let the material inspire you. Just don't stray too far. That's just my biggest thing.
All honesty, I feel like it's building up to something, but I'll go into that later. But Pure Love, what do you think?
Well, the best way I could say is come in with your foot swinging. Basically, if you're gonna do it right, but then don't lose the steam behind it. You know, don't come in and pull like a movie trilogy thing where the first movie is always the best. No, you got to keep that momentum going. So, you know, when they start off, do good. Obviously, don't judge any show on its pilot episode because that's just rule one of watching in the show.
Absolutely.
But they need to like really make sure they have a strong start and continue that momentum throughout the not just the first season, but you know how many ever it may be picked up for.
Gotcha. I agree. I definitely agree. I think so far the MCU is taking the right steps with like basically we've been getting a lot of content. Like superhero stuff is blown up, but like I said, keep the writing on par, keep working at like fleshing out your characters, all of that. Like the combinations, the crossovers, even the little connections from the movies to the shows, it's the right way to go, and they should continue on that. Like
details.
Just,
details are good.
I so far I'm enjoying it, and I'm really glad at what they've been doing so far. I just think, like I said, keep going. Like what Pure Love said, keep going with the momentum you got, and keep going, pushing out the shows. Make sure the writing's on par. Our complaints are our complaints, but the show doesn't look. Marvel MCU shows aren't actually terrible. They're good. They're good in a sense. There's stuff that just needs to be improved. We'll wait to see Defenders, season 2s of the other shows. We'll see how things go. Just keep going with the momentum, and I feel like they're gonna have no problems in the future. So.
Yeah. That sounds about right. So that'll pretty much wrap it up for this Tripack chat discussion. We thank everyone who's listened and made it to the end of this long video. It's first time doing it, so excuse the rambling that was there. If you like or agree with anything that we said or disagree, let us know in the comments if you feel like typing a comment so we can talk about it. And we look forward to talking to you all in the next Tripack chat episode. See you later.
Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. Throw us that thumbs up if you want to hear more from us.
That pure love.
Let us know any ideas for future chats. If we come up with any that we can do, we'll take those into consideration and start working on them. And also feel free to like us on Facebook. We have a Tripack Black Facebook, and
all that shit will be in the description. And yeah, that's all, folks.
Thank you.
That's all, folks.